interference phenomena. And historically, first ray optics is developed, and then after it is followed by the wave optics. And coming to the interaction, one more thing is that in optical science, it is relevant to the all type of fields like astronomy and various engineering fields and photography, and especially in medicine, that's optometry, which is related to the eyes, effects of vision of eye, how it is going to be corrected by the eyes, and then how the lines are going to fabricated for the correction of eye vision defects. And second thing is that in practical application in everyday life, we're going to see the objects that through the mirrors, lens, telescopes, microscopes, lasers, fiber optics, all this comes under the category of optics only. Today, the pure science of optics is referred as optical engineering. In this, it is going to be focused on the mainly illumination engineering, photonics, and optoelectronics. And it is going to be involved in the practical applications like lens design, fabrication, and testing of optical components. All these things comes under before the capturing of image. And after the capturing of image, you're going to do all the processing with the MATLAB, everything that's going to be done by the image process. Our focus is that pre-capturing the image. Now, coming to the outline of webinar. In this webinar, we're going to focus on the first basic understanding of optical imaging fundamentals, like reflection, refraction, total internal reflection, which just comes under ray optics, diffraction, scattering, and dispersion of light, which just comes under wave optics. And here, everything, whatever you're going to see that without the lens, we can't see the our world. That means our eyes is a lens only. And this webinar is going to be explain the formation of image for that spherical lens, how it is going to be formed. And then we're going to observe the different cases of formation of images, when it is closer, when it is far away. And then if the defects is there in vision, how we're going to be corrected, we're going to understand. And then finally, we're going to design the one microscopic objective camera, in that how the errors are going to be removed. That means these errors are like aberrations. Aberration is nothing but it is any particular object which deletes the image quality. That means the image quality is going to be reduced further and further because of the geometrical considerations, or maybe because of the properties of light, whatever it means. How it is going to be corrected during the design of microscope object camera, we're going to observe in this session. My problem statement is that it is the title of the project: design, characterization, and fabrication of microlens array imaging. And before understanding the microlens array imaging, first we need to understand what is the meaning of lens. And before that, we need to understand what is the properties of light reflection, refraction, and basic phenomena, what we studied in plus two cooling level. That's we're going to be rewind furthermore, and then we're going to understand it, and then we're going to use that knowledge to design of the microscopic objective camera. First basic fundamental thing is that refraction. Refraction is nothing but the change in direction of light when it is traveling obliquely from one medium to another medium. That's known as refraction. When a light is passes from one medium that's having the reflective index of N1 to another medium reflective index of N2 by an angle of incidence theta 1, then it is going to be refracted away from the normal. It is when you say that this is a normal curve, and then when it is incidented with an angle of theta 1, then after the refraction, it is going to be ray bend away from the normal curve. That's known as Snell's law. That is, you can define that N1 sin theta 1 is equal to N2 sin theta. This thing is going to be observed in while you are working on the formation of image in the lens. And here there are two cases of that. When the light is passing from rarer medium to denser medium, that means I am taking the example that air as a rarer medium and glass as a denser medium. When it is incident obliquely with the angle of I, then the ray is reflected towards the normal. Here, I is greater than R when it is traveling from rarer to denser. In second case, that when it is, the ray is traveling from denser medium to rarer medium, then I is less than R. That means the reflected ray is away from the normal. Then third most interesting case is that when it is ray making the angle is equal to 0, that means I equal to 0, then refraction is also going to be 0 angular. In this case, you won't see the refraction at all. But actually, why it is going the bending nature of light you observe here that when the light passes from the one medium to other medium, the the velocity of the light is changing drastically because of the change of medium parameters. Here in air, the light velocity is 3 into 10 power of 8. And when you compare, when the light is passes through the glass media, the light velocity will be 2 into 10 power of 8. The drastic change of velocity that leads to the refracted ray bend towards the normal. When it is denser to there, that drastically increase of the velocity is going to observe. When it is bent with the angle of 0 degrees only, angle of incidence 0 degrees, then it no bend at all, but the velocity is completely going to be changed. That means drastically changes to the decreasing velocity. That's we can observe in the reflection of light. And our lens are going to work on the principle of reflection of light. And one more phenomena is that reflection. Some of these objects that which can reflect the light, like this way, a plane mirror which is incident obliquely with the incident ray that is going to reflect it back to the same medium. And one more thing we can observe in reflection is that the internal incident ray, reflected ray, and the normal, all the things are in same plane. And one more interesting fact is that the angle of incidence is always equal to the angle of reflection. That we can see clearly. That reflection of light you can observe in the mirror. And one more special parameter is that, special phenomenon is that total internal reflection. Here, when the light passes through the denser medium to rarer medium, that here is a glass and here is a air. Then it is passing from denser to rarer medium with having the critical angle, that theta c. Then the refracted ray will be passes through surface of the medium. That is a boundary surface of that. Then if it is greater than the critical angle, then it is going to reflect back to the same surface. That's we can observe that. That's known as total internal reflection. This is the basic principle involved in the working principle of optical fiber, where we're going to send a large amount of data through the total internal reflection principle only. And one more basic phenomenon is that dispersion. Dispersion is nothing but splitting of white light into constituent colors. That means white light is the combination of infinite number of colors. Right now, for the basic understanding, we are using only 7 colors. That is a VIBGR. Here, when the white light incidence obliquely on the prism surface, and then because of the refraction principle, it is going to be refracted. Why is that going to happen? Because the change of velocity of light. Here, each color having a different velocity. And if you see the red light having the maximum velocity, and then violet having the least velocity. That's why the deviation for the violet will be more compared with the red light. And then in air medium, the white light has in almost all the colors will having the 3 to 10 power of 8 meters per second. But when it is passing through the glass prism, red has the high amount of velocity and compared with the violet. That's why the dispersion is going to take place. The band of colors obtained by the dispersion of light is known as spectrum. And how it is going to be done? When in previous example, I had taken the white light. It is chromatic light. That is a combination of all constituent colors. Now I'm taking only one color. That's green color only, monochromatic light I'm taking. When it incident obliquely on the prism surface, then because of the refraction principle, first the ray, when it is passing through from air to glass medium, the ray bend towards the normal. Then the ray is passing from prism to air, the ray bends away from the normal. In this way, the refraction is going to work in the prism. And can we observe that this splitting nature, the splitting nature of the prism and then recombining nature of the prism can be done? It's possible. If you put the prism of flipping of one more prism having 180 degrees pressure, then when light is passing on this prism, then first it is going to be refraction, then it's going to be splitted. And then after, because of inverted prism, it is going to be recombined together and gives the same white light. This thing is going to be used for in the application of periscope. There we're going to see the distance objects without the aberration. And one more phenomena is that physical phenomena where we can see all the basic things of dispersion, total internal reflection, refraction is that rainbow. Here the rainbow is that when the sunlight of white light is passing through the raindrop, Then first the dispersion is going to be takes place. The raindrop will act as a prism first, and then after that, when the droplet is having the critical angle is there. When it is meets more than a critical angle, the total internal reflection phenomena works there. Then after that, the refraction will comes there, and then we're going to see the rainbow, different colors of the rainbow, that in depletion of light, like VGR type you can see. And most of the time, this rainbow you can see that where the waterfalls are there. Then you can see the every time the rainbow. And coming to the wave nature of the light, that's the best one is scattering. When light waves are caused to depart from the side path due to the imperfections in the medium, it's going to be observed as scattering phenomenon. The best example of scattering phenomenon is that why the sky is blue color is because of scattering, and why the sunrise and sunset is in red color, it is because of scattering phenomenon. If you see the in sunrise and sunset, because of scattering, all the rays are going to be scattered on all the directions. Only red light are going to be reached to our eye. That's why we are feeling that sunset is in red color. And if the phenomena is going to be done by tiny colliding particles, that's known as Tyndall effect. This phenomena you're going to observe it when you're working in underwater communication. If you're in the underwater communication, if you're using the lens design, then you can see that this effect is as a Tyndall effect. And coming to the diffraction, it is nothing but bending of the wave around the corners of the obstacle or near the aperture. Aperture is nothing but a blocking surface that which passes the only few portion of the light only for the different phenomena like diffraction of wave. And if the aperture is large enough, then you can observe that low levels of diffraction. If the aperture is small, then high levels of diffraction you can see. This one we can observe that when we don't have the light in your room, when the small hole is there, then you can observe the diffraction phenomena that where it covers the light for the whole entire area. If the opening area is more and more, then it is going to cover the less area only. The diffraction phenomena will be less. That's a physical example of diffraction. And we're going to conduct, we can understand the basic principle of the diffraction by the single slit experiment, where I use the narrow slit and then the plane of wavefront with the laser, I produce that. Then the waves are going to be traveled to the image surface. Then the image is going to be formed that the center of the image will be having a high maximum intensity like this, and then edges will be having the low light intensity like this. That means we don't observe that the image will having the better image quality at the center, at the edges will having the blurriness because of the light intensity. That can be explained better through the light rays also. And coming to the basic thing is lens. Lens is a transmitting optical device that focus or disperse the light beam by means of reflection. The same thing in lens also refraction is going to be done. When compared with prism, both the things are working on the principle of refraction. Here in prism, the splitting of colors we can observe it. But we didn't observe the focus point of that, where these colors are going to be merged together. We can't see that the converging point. The converging point is known as focus. So that's we can't observe in prism. But coming to the lens, refraction is going to take place with the help of the focus. Your lens can focus the light from the image and which refracts light with focusing. That's going to be done in lens. And one more basic difference between lens and mirrors are that a mirror is a glass surface with silvery backing that produces the image through the reflection. It works on principle of law of reflection, and it can be either plane or maybe curved. But lens is that it is usually curved only. At least it having the two surfaces. At least one surface need to be curved. It works on the principle of law of reflection. Reflection takes place in mirror, refraction takes place in lens, and the refraction without focusing is going to be done in prism. That is the basic difference of these three things. And how the classifications of lens are done. These lenses are classified based on the bending nature of the light, how the bending is done. That means whether they're going to be converse or maybe diverse the radius when they're passing through it. Based on that, it is classified into two types. convex lens, concave lens. Convex lens is nothing but converging lens. That means where the thickness is thickness at the middle and thinner at the edges physically, and then where the, these rays are going to be passed through the lens, then these rays are going to converge at a single point that's known as focus. And in diverging lens, these rays are going to be diverged outwards. It won't be converged. For the converging, it's going to be done if you draw the drawback of this lens. Okay, and then we can see the virtual focus in diverging lens. Now, for the formation of image, first we need to understand what are the basic rules for the convex lens. We're going to understand for the convex, then later we're going for the concave, and then we can see that applications of convex and concave in the defects of errors in design. And in convex lens, first rule one is that here the terminal is that O is optical center of the image lens, and F1, F2 are the principal foci, and 2F1, 2F2 is the image, that means object distance we're going to be formed. And then here in rule one, first thing is that when the ray is parallel to the principal axis and when it passes through the lens, after the refraction, it passes through the next foci of the lens, that's the F2. And rule 2 is that when the ray is passing through the optical center of the lens, then it is completely emerges out without the deviation. And third rule is that when the ray is passing through the F1, then after the refraction, it will be parallel to the principal axis. These are the three rules. Then out of which rule 1 and rule 2, 3 is that is exactly opposite to each other. That means that is the invertibility nature of the light. That's why in image we can see that reverse image we can see it because of these three laws. And for the formation of image, I'm going to consider out of 3 we will take only 2 for the image formation. Then obviously I'm going to take rule 1 and rule 2. And every time I'm going to consider the top of the image only. Bottom of the image I won't consider, because bottom of the image is nothing but we're going to give the inversibility of the image only. It's going to be happen. First case 1 in convex lens. When object is beyond 2f1 point, then here everything is going to be considered that object is at certain distance, we know it, and image going to be formed at what place, that's we're going to observe it. These are the cases we're going to observe in convex lens and concave lens throughout the webinar. Now first case 1 is object is beyond 2f1. Then top rays, the ray first rule 1 is that when which is parallel to the principal axis. After the refraction, it is going to pass through the F2. And one more ray is that which is passing through the optical center, it is going to be converged at the point in between F2 and 2F2. Where these rays are going to be converged, there the image is going to be formed. I am exactly showing that the top point of the object only as image of it, and the bottom will be the rule 3. Then you can draw it normally. And then we're going to observe that what the properties of the image, how they're going to be formed. Here, the image property is that it is real and inverted and diminished. The size of the image is compared with object, it is less only. That's why diminished. And it is real and it is inverted. Second case is that if it is object is exactly at 2f1, at 2f1 it is standing over there, then these rays are going to be converged through the f2 at the point 2f2. That means image is formed at image at 2f2, and image height is exactly same as the object height. This is a property of the image. In coming to case 3, if it is between f1 and 2f1, then these rays are going to be converged beyond 2f2, and the properties of image is that real and inverted and it is magnified. It's more than the real object. And fourth case, if the object is at f1, that means when it is moving, object is more closer to the lens, then these rays are going to be diverged. That means they're going to meet at the infinity point. That means the image is going to formed with the size of infinity size. That will be real and inverted image only, but infinity size you're going to observe it. If you go further close to the lens, then this is the object. When it is goes further close to the lens, like that, it is in between O and F1. Then the image, the rays are going to become as a divergent. And if you want to converge that those divergent rays, then we're going to draw back to the divergent rays back towards that. It is nothing but when you draw with the dotted lines, that is virtual image only. These rays are going to be converged at the point, virtual point, which is behind the lines only. And this image is virtual image, and it is a erected image. It is not clear at all. And one more thing is that the main example of this phenomena is that the magnifying glass, where we're going to see that the close observation of the objects in very close way, in microscopic or maybe magnifying glasses. This phenomena is going to be observed in practically. This is the number of cases we observed in convex lens. Coming to the concave lens. Now the rules for concave lens are going to compare with the convex lens. Here, similar to the convex lens, in concave lens also, first when the ray is parallel to the principal axis, it is going to be diverged, and it looks like it is coming from the focus point F2. And second point is that second rule is that when the ray is passing to the optical center, then it is passing, it emerges out without the deviation. It is similar to the rule 2 of the convex lens. And rule 3 is that if the ray is obliquely incident on the concave lens, then after the refraction, the coming out ray will be parallel to the principal axis. And the rule 3 and rule 1 is exactly opposite to each other because of inversibility of the light. And then for the formation of image, we're going to consider rule 1 and rule 2. Then in these cases, I'm taking the object beyond 2f2. Then the ray which is parallel to the principal axis, first it is going to be diverged, and which is ray passing through the optical center, it is going to be deviated. Without deviation, it will go straight. And then these are for the formation of image, these rays are need to be converged at certain point. For the converging, where the divergent ray is there, we need to draw back the dotted lines. Then the image is going to be formed here. This is the virtual image. It's not a real image, and it is always in upright. It is always in virtual, and it is always in diminished. That is the one best thing in concave lens, that we're going to get the whether the object is moving closer to the lens or away from the lens, you're going to get the image as virtual, upright, and diminished only. In second case, you can observe that one clearly also. If it is in between 2f to f2, that means when it is, the object is closing towards the lens, even that case also, you're going to see the image as virtual, upright, diminished, and formed between the object and lens O and f2 only. The main application of this concave lens is that practically in day-to-day life, you will see that binocular cameras. The binocular cameras is the best example for that. For the seeing of distance objects, we can see that with the binocular vision, we can see the virtual, upright, and diminished image only. Now, we studied how the image is going to be formed in concave lens and convex lens. We studied, and then how these lenses are going to be used for the to correct the defects in vision. First, how the image is going to be formed on the eye in the normal eye. How we going to do that? That's we're going to understand. First, normal eye is nothing but it's an autofocus camera, because it is going to be adjust the power according to the object which is nearby or for object. It is going to adjust the power. That's known as power of accommodation. When the eye loses this power of accommodation, then the vision defects are going to be occurred. The normally far point of normal eye is infinity, but practically it is a 50 meters. Up to 15 meters in normal eye can see the objects very clearly. And near point of normal eye is 25 centimeters. That means up to 25 centimeters, the normal eye can see the object very clearly. Then how the image is going to be formed? We can observe this phenomena through this figure. Here the distance object, the rays coming from the distance objects always in parallel only. Then when it is here, I'm considering the eye has the 3 parts. It's a cornea, first entering part, and then lens, and then retina. The surface is nothing but retina. When the rays are passing through the cornea, and then refracted by the lens, eye lens, and then it is going to be converged on the surface of the retina. When these rays are going to be converged exactly on the surface of the retina, then the image will be clear. If it is converged before the retina or after the retina, the blurriness will occur. That is known as defects in vision. Then we will see the different types of vision. The defects in vision are classified into 4 types. First one is myopia. Myopia is nothing but short-sightedness. And second one is hypermetropia. It is nothing but far-sightedness. And third one, presbyopia. It is due to the voltage of hypermetropia only. And fourth one is the cataract. First one is myopia. Myopia is nothing but short-sightedness. That means you can see that myopic eye person can see the nearby objects very clearly, but far objects not clear. That the near point of the far point of myopic eye is 1 meter only. That may be less than the infinity. Then what are the causes of myopic eye is that high converging power of eye lens. That means these rays are going to be converged before the retina. That's why the focal length of eye lens is shorter compared to the normal eye. And one more thing is that if this eyeball is too long, then these rays are going to be converged before the retina. Then that means here you're going to face the problem with the far distance objects. Then how it is going to be corrected? It is going to be corrected by using of the divergent rays. That means diverging lens. That's nothing but concave lens. When you keep the concave lens in between eye lens and before the object, then these rays are going to be diverged, and then these rays are going to be, after the refraction, these rays are going to be converged exactly on the surface of the retina. Then by this way we can remove the myopic eye correction. And the best example is that our eye spectacles are only having this myopic eye correction lens. That means concave lens, we're going to use it. And hypermetropia. Hypermetropia is nothing but long-sightedness. That means here the distance objects will be clear, but nearby objects are not clear. The near point of hypermetropic eye is that 50 centimeter. That means if it is more closer than 50 centimeters, he can't see the main causes of hypermetropia is that low converging power. That means these converging rays are going to be converged behind the retina. That is because of the eyeball is too short, or maybe the eye lens are weak. That means what are the muscles and the nerves attached to the eye lens if it are weak, then these rays are going to be converged behind the retina. Actually, we studied that eye is as a autofocus camera. Eye as a autofocus camera. Why is means that in nearby objects and far objects, the converging is going to be adjusted automatically. In defects of eye, it is not going to be accommodated according to the situation. That's why defects of vision is going to be occurred. And this hypermetropic eye, how is going to be corrected? For that, we're going to use the convex lens. This convex lens is going to be give the some part of refraction, and then after that, eye lens will give the some part of refraction. After that, exactly these rays are going to be converged exactly on the surface of the retina. We can see that one. It is going to be corrected by the reading glasses. The convex lens is also known as reading glasses only. You can see that old people having this type of reading glasses. How and special cases is that. That means the eye can't see the distant objects and can't see the near objects clearly. That is nothing but it is a hybrid version of myopic and a hypermetropic. And for that, we're going to use the bifocal lens. That means upper part will having the concave lens to correct the myopia, and lower part will having the convex lens to correct the hypermetropia. It is the upper part which for the myopic eye correction, and lower part for the hypermetropic correction. This type of glass, we can see that the persons for watching if the person having the myopic and hypermetric effect is there, then that guy will see the objects by opening the eye lens too far away, and then for reading the paper he is going to see downwards. That you can see that there is a thin line in between the change of power. Now presently these lenses are replaced by the progressive lens. It is also known as non-line multifocal lens. Here, the thin line is not visible at all. The upper part will consist of distance lens, concave, and then intermediate lens, and then near lens as the convex lens. Then there you can see the change of power. It's like autofocus camera is going to be done. Autofocus camera like means our eye, how it is going to be changed the power of accommodation. Same the way it is going to be changed with these spectacles. And it is better than the bifocal lens, but it is very expensive. Last defect is that defects of vision is cataract. Cataract is nothing but due to the old age, eye lens becomes progressively cloudy. That means opaque is going to be formed between the lens and between the eyelids and lens. It develops slowly. It can affect one eye or both eyes, and it leads to the total loss of vision also. The one only thing that for the correction is that surgical operation only. In surgical operation, these cloudy lenses are replaced by the artificial eye lens, which provides the automatic power accommodation facility. Now we understood the defects of vision, and we understood how the concave and convex lens are going to be used for the removal of defects in vision. Now there are types of lens are available. Like in converging lens, so you can say that it is also a positive lens. These are three types: double convex, plano convex, converging meniscus. In double convex, the two surfaces will be curved outwards, and plano convex, one surface will be plane and another surface is curved outwards, and converging meniscus, two surfaces are curved outwards only. And you can see in diverging lens, it is also negative lens, double concave, plano concave, and diverging meniscus. And right now we're going to design the microscopic objective camera. In that, we're going to see the different combination of these lenses to minimize the effects or maybe the aberrations or maybe the errors caused by the optics of the lens. Now, and what are the errors you can observe in lens? That is nothing but aberration. Optical aberration is nothing but it's a property of lens that causes distortion or blurring during the image formation. That's nothing but any particular aberration which causes the depleting the image quality. That's known as aberration in normal simple terms. It is occurs due to the light. It is dispersed rather than it is going to be focused. These aberrations are going to be classified into two types based upon the color: chromatic and monochromatic. In chromatic, again, these are classified into two types: longitudinal and lateral. In monochromatic, again classified into four types: spherical, coma, and then field of curvature. And distortion is also there, but we're going to discuss a spherical, coma, and field of curvature in design of the microscopic objective camera. Then first, chromatic aberration. In chromatic aberration, we had seen that when the parallel light rays are passed through the lens, then after the refraction, these are going to be converged because of the different lines of the chromatic light. That means different lights, different colors of light going to be traveled with the different velocities. That's why they are going to be converged before the focus point, after the focus point. And why blue light is going to be converged before the focus point? Because it is having the maximum deviation, because the velocity of the blue light is very reduced when compared with the red light. That's why red light is going to converge after the focus point of the actually, and then blue light is going to converge before the focus point of actual. And green light is going to converge exactly at the focus point of the object image plane. And this is known as chromatic aberration. And here we can see that shift of the focus along the principal axis. That's why it is also known as axial aberration. That's why it is also known as axial aberration. It is going to be done on the axis. That's why it is axial aberration. And here in the aberration, what we're going to observe is that the center of the image will be having the good clarity, but the edge of the image is going to be blurred. Then that is known as aberration only. And then why it is going to be happen? Because of shifting of the focus only. That means these converging rays are going to be converged before the focus or maybe after the focus. Because of that is going to, that's why we're going to see that the blurriness at the edges of the image. If it is these uh, uh, these converging points are along the axis, that's known as longitudinal. If it is happen because of the prismatic effect of light, then that's known as transverse aberration. That means when light passes through the prism, the red light is going to be less deviated compared with the blue light. Then the angle of deviation, it will be less for the red light, and blue light will have the angle of deviation is more. That's known as prismatic effect. Because of that, the focus point is going to be shifted vertically. That's these two phenomena we can see it in one single diagram. Here, your object is there. These rays are passing through the lens, and then after the refraction, the focus point is going to be shifted vertically and then horizontally. The horizontal shift of focus point is known as longitudinal chromatic aberration. The vertical shift of focus point is known as lateral chromatic aberration. It is because of the different colors of light. That's why it's known as chromatic aberration. And this chromatic aberration is going to be suppressed by using of the achromatic doublet. Here in achromatic doublet, we're going to use the combination of positive lens and negative lens. That's nothing but crown glass and flint glass combined together. That's known as achromat. Here, the deviation of the red light and blue light is going to be suppressed because of the combination of these two different types of lines. Then these two rays are going to be converged exactly at the focus point. That's known as where the achromatic image is going to be formed. And by this way, the chromatic aberration is going to be removed. We can't remove exactly, but we can minimize that effect. Now coming to the monochromatic aberration. In monochromatic aberration, every time we're going to use the one color only. Here I'm taking the red color light only. When it is passes through the spherical lens, then these rays are going to be converged. Some rays are going to be converged before the focus point. Some rays are going to be converged after the focus point. It is because of that when the rays are passing through the edges of the lens, these rays are going to converge before the focus point. When the rays are passing through the center of the lens, it is going to be converge after the focus point. And it is because of the large angle. This nothing but when you see that this when the rays are passing through the edge of the lens, here what is the angle is there. If the angle is going to be increased furthermore, these rays are going to be converged before the focus point. Because of that, you can see the bloodness in the image at the edges. That's known as spherical aberration. To limit this spherical aberration, that minimization can be done by using an aperture before the lens. Aperture is nothing but blocking surface. It allows the only few portion of light only, and otherwise you can use the two of lens. Otherwise, the best possible way is the use of aspherical lens. Instead of sphere, we can give the lens of different shapes of type, like this curved wedge. Rather than completely curved, we're going to use the partial curve only. That's known as aspherical lens. Here we can see the best focus point compared with the spherical lens. And then here you can see that we use the aperture, then the lens, the rays which are falling on the edge of the lens, that's are removed, which are passing through the center of the lens, that is going to be converged exactly at the focus point. And one more case is that if you use the multiple lens, then combined together, then you're going to get the best focus point. By this way, the spherical aberration is going to be minimized. Next, coma aberration. Here, in all the cases, even from prism to here, in the complete to the lens, we consider the light as falling on parallelly on the surface of the lens. But if it is incident obliquely, that means making the angle with the surface of the lens, then this coma aberration is going to be observed. That means here also I'm considering the light having the one color only, blue color type. And then here, when rays are passing through the edge of the lens, the converge of before focus and shifted with the axis, you can see it. That's known as coma aberration. Here, the shift of axis is going to be in vertically only going to be changed. then that means the oblique incident light which are fall on the lens surface, and it is going to be which are fall on the edge of the surface, then that is going to be converged before the focus point. That's known as coma aberration. This coma aberration is going to be removed by using the aperture at certain position. There are two cases of placing the aperture. The first thing is that if you place the aperture before the lens, then the coma aberration is not removed. It is increased further. If you place the aperture in between the lens, then the coma aberration is reduced or minimized. Then we can see that we can understood that for the removal of coma aberration or spherical aberration, we need to use the two lens, and then we have to use the aperture at a certain position only. In this case, I am using in middle position. Now, one more aberration is that field curvature. In field curvature, here we use the aperture also, and before that we didn't use the aperture for the coma aberration. Here the aperture size is more and oblique incidence is also more. In field of aperture size is less and oblique incidence level also less, then but the shifting of focus you can observe it. If it is parallelly the rays falls on the surface of the lens, it is going to focus at the point of here, and then because of oblique incidence it is shifted vertically and it is converged before the actual focus of point. It looks like a curvature. That's known as field of curvature. It is because of the combination of positive and negative lens. That means converging lens and diverging lens. If you combine together, because of that, we can observe the field curvature. It's like a aberration only. Because of that, the edge of the image is not to be clear, and only the center of the image is going to be clear. And to balance this effect, we're going to use the negative lens. Negative lens is nothing but diverging lens are going to be used at the place of the curvature, where this, because of that diverging lens, this focus point going to be shifted, and these are going to be converged exactly on the same plane of the image. That's you can observe here. Here, see that these two lenses are, because of oblique incidence of light, it is going to be converged, and then because of to reduce that field curvatureness, I use the diverging lens. That's nothing but concave lens, and then this concave lens going to be cause the diverging of rays, and the focus is going to be shifted a little bit, and this field curvature is going to be changed. So when compared with the previous case, the curvature is having the more. Now, right now, it is becoming somewhat less. That it is when it is become a straight line, then the image at the center and the edges will be clear. That means to get the image good clarity, the curvature should be very less. Now, final our design is that microscopic objective camera is like this way. That means when the rays are what are the aberrations we had seen? That the chromatic aberration, and then specular aberration, and coma aberration, and field curvature aberration. To remove that coma aberration, I'm using the aperture at particular position, and then to remove the spherical aberration, I'm using the double lens, and then to remove the field curvature and to make that flattening, for that I'm using the diverging lens, like negative lens I'm going to use it. Because of that, I'm going to get the image with good clarity at the center, and even at the edges also we're going to get the good clarity. Then with this design, we're going to get the obtain that 5 times the magnification of focal length. This is our design. It is not the complete design. It is like a module. For designing of anything, we need to first draw the module. After that, we need to go for the technical parameters of that module, and then we're going to see its performance. That my primary thing is that first module is completed right now. Now I'm going to do the next session, in next webinar session, I'm going to do the in Codify. In Codify, I'm going to implement it, and then we can see the performance of that in Codify. Then this is my presentation. I'm going to conclude the presentation like this way. First, what we understood, that we understood the fundamentals of the optical imaging, like reflection, refraction, total internal reflection, and then we observe the scattering phenomena, diffraction phenomena, and then we observe what is the basic difference between the ray optics and wave optics also. And second thing is that we understood the formation of image for the lens, the rule 1, rule 2, and rule 3, and then how in different cases how it is going to be formed. And third one is that we studied the defects of vision, and we used for the correction how these lenses are going to be used, the convex and concave lens for the defects to erect the corrections in image. And fourth one is that we experienced the design of the microscopic objective camera. And our feature scope is follows like this way. First, whatever the module I had defined, that one I would like to design in code 5, and then I would like to see its analysis by the using of MPF functions, spot diagrams, and then the diagnostic tools also available, which are available in code 5. And then I would like to apply optimization on the designed microscopic objective camera, and then I would like to apply in tolerance design also, and then I would like to extend the above steps in design of the micro lens array, because whatever we studied in its completion of only one length or group of the lens in sequential day, but we didn't study that in 3-dimensional. That means M cross N array. In micro lens array is nothing but the same, the lens are going to be done in micro size, and there we're going to get the more converging. That means we can see the image at the center and at the corner also having the good clarity. We can observe it in micro lens array. That's what we're going to see in future scope with the core 5. And these are the books I referred for the basic understanding of the physics. That is elementary textbook on physics and modern optical engineering, and then optics, and a textbook of optics. I followed through these 4 textbooks and some of the YouTube videos and some of the reference materials by the Code 5 also. Okay, thank you. Okay, any queries?
Thank you, Srinivasulu. Can you just go back to the future scope slide? Yes. So for the students working with me, if you take a look at these 5 broad areas, so the first one is to design a microscopic objective camera in Core 5. So this can apply to any imaging device. So you can design a microscope, you can design a telescope, you can design a cinematic camera, you can design satellite cameras, long distance cameras. You can, whatever imaging systems you want to build, Code 5 is your go-to tool. It has all the features and it's very powerful because Code 5 is used by NASA. So for those who are not, those who know NASA, ISRO, even ISRO's one of the primary tool in optical development is Code 5. Synopsys is serving some of the clients. So if you go to this Code 5 is a software. It is just from a company called as Synopsys. So if you are, if you just go to their website, you can see their clients. And I know for sure that in astronomical imaging, this Code 5 is used in plenty. So that tells us about the software's feature and how good it is and how useful it could be for our research. And the second broad domain is mentioned here is the performance, the analysis of the performance. So the analysis of anything, so any algorithm or any imaging design or anything you develop, it has to be analyzed in terms of certain performance parameters. So the Code 5 comes with this built-in ready-made performance graphs. So we just have to build something and then press this button and then it gives the complete analysis report. So we don't have to write a step-by-step code. We don't have to write every time. We don't have to make a new graph every time. All this is inbuilt. So you just have to press a button and then the full analysis report comes ready to you. So that is what the Code 5 performance. Just one second. And the third one is your optimization. So optimization is what? Suppose like today you have seen, so he was showing there are like, you take a bunch of lens. So no imaging. So if you take a simple, so the first or even a DSLR camera or even your mobile cameras, they have a lot of components, minimum more than 100 components, movable and non-movable parts are incorporated into a single camera. So how these parts interact with each other? It is like building a bike. So your bike is having a lot of components, and after you build a bike, you want to run it, you want to see the mileage, you want to see how fast it can go, you want to see whether it is gonna break down when you're driving. So all these tests you want to run, and that is your optimization. So you want to tune your bike to the best performance, right? So we want the same applies here also. We want to tune our imaging system or the tune our optics design to give the best performance. And this is also something that is already that is very much available in code 5. So what is mentioned here, it is not just the feature scope, and it is some of the power sets that are available in code 5. So the tolerance. So what do you mean by tolerance? The tolerance is like how, suppose you are taking a camera, so apply tolerance on code 5. So what you mean by tolerance is, if suppose you are taking a photo on your mobile camera, so you go out there and it is evening, so you say the lighting is okay, so the picture will come okay. But then as it gets darker, when you take a pic, it's completely dark, you're not able to see anything. So that is the tolerance. So the tolerance is like your camera cannot take photos after 7 p.m. at night. So that is one of the limitation. So at till 7 p.m. your camera is able to produce output or produce images for you, but after that it's not capable. So we need to find how tolerant our imaging system is, because our imaging system has to be tolerant to shake. When somebody will shake the camera, and also sometimes when you're taking the picture, there will be different light sources, not just one light sources. So we will be taking photos in not always ideal conditions. So the ideal conditions is a studio. So inside a studio you take a photo, that is ideal condition. So we control the direction of the light, we control the temperature of the light, we control the distance of the object, everything is set to perfection. So that is ideal case inside a studio. But normally we take photos not just in the studio, we take photos at all places. And so we need to see how tolerant our design is to these external stimulus and environmental conditions. Good. And finally, what is mentioned here is the micro lens array imaging. So why this micro lens array imaging? That is because nowadays you are having a single, right? So what will happen is you have seen so far, you have seen convex lens, you have seen concave lens, spherical lens, many lens you have seen. But in all the lens that you have seen, the lens is just a single object, but the curvature of the lens is different. So in one it is the curvature is towards the outward, and another one is towards the inward, and in some case you have both, right? So but only the difference in curvature on these lenses. But micro lens is a new domain. So in micro lens, I'll just I want to share screen, but I'll show it because we will be seeing that in the upcoming webinars. Your single lens consists of multiple lens. You understood? So your single lens is consist of multiple glass lens. So it's like small bubbles. Your lens is going to have a lot of bubbles, and each of these bubbles are made up of glass, and they are individual lenses, small lenses packed together to give a single lens. That is your micro lens array. So far, so this is what broadly our code 5 is capable of doing. And not just this, there is a lot about he was talking about diffraction in the beginning. So how the aperture is going to introduce diffraction in the imaging. So how do you minimize diffraction? So diffraction can be desired and undesired. In some places the diffraction can help us to get good pictures. In some cases it must be avoided at all costs. So that is also something we can study in detail with code 5. All right, so yesterday one of my PhD student was asking me what will be my broad area of research. So now I'm pretty sure that with this slide, one for the past 10 to 15 minutes, what I have spoken must give you a clear idea on what all the things can be done with this tool, with this Code 5 software, but in optical imaging also. So if you were to choose any of the things that I've just spoken right now as your PhD area, I'm very sure that you will easily your 2 years of PhD work, PhD time will go like it will go very fast because it's very interesting, and the solutions that you're going to come up with are going to be very new. It's a trending topic, and not much has been done on optics with Code 5, and even if they have done, they have not published many because in academia it is very few. Very few universities are using these softwares and publishing on Code 5 and with this optical imaging, because optics is there, but optical imaging I'm talking about. So it's going to be very interesting, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. And now I think we have enough time for a Q&A. So all who are listening can ask some questions about this, about your PhD work, anything in general. So if it is about the PPT topics, Srinivasulu will address, and if it is about other general things, then maybe I'll try to answer these questions. So please, okay, we can start now, Q&A.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can I play the video that which motivates me to work in optics?
Okay, you have a video. I thought you were finished with the PPT. That's why I was asking for Q&A. Okay, just let us wait
Actually, I have
wait
the
for
video. It's just for 5 minutes.
Srinivasulu to finish. He has some video demo, it seems. Let him play the video, and then after that we can have the Q&A. Okay, Srinivasulu, please.
So I would like to share my view that while I joined for the optics, that this video gives the motivation to work in optics, and they had given some advice from the experts and then who was working in optics only, and they said that optics is a new trending technology in coming decade. They had given with that the perspective only I joined for this project. I would like to play that video. Please go through that.
This is a field that is just set to expand enormously over the next 10 years, next 20 years, next 30 years throughout this century. I mean, it's just think of the applications in which lasers and photonics have been used already. And you look at the rate of growth and penetration into different fields of science.
Medaru, this Srinivasulu's voice is not clear. Is it full audio based? No. The video, is it? Does it have any demo, or is it just voice over? Is it,
just
okay?
voice
Then I think you can share this link to the group, and also you can put it on the chat box here in the Google Meet.
Sir.
Because when you play a video on Google Meet, that voice will not be clear. There are some problem, because I also tried it in my class.
Okay.
So I used to send the link, and they used to watch it. That is how we. So you can put the link on the chat. Yeah, you can put it here. Meanwhile, we can start the Q&A session, so they can. Please look at this video, because here the voice is not very audible. So he is posting the link on the chat box. So please. So he's saying that it is a very good. Yeah, it is indeed. It is a very good area, and optics and photonics are some things that gonna shape up the future of imaging technology. So we are very we should be very happy to that we have a funded project, and we have a lot of resource to work on this and make it shape our career in the future. Okay, so we can have the Q&A now. So who are the students? Ajina, any questions?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, he told that you're placing two lenses So what's the criteria for placing the two lenses? Is there any rules or formula to keep that?
Medaru, you can keep the PPT. You can share the screen and keep the PPT so that you can answer these doubts.
Yes, sir. That slide only I'm going to be keep.
Okay. Yes.
You told that two lenses to be kept, no, to improve the. What is the rules for keeping the two lenses?
Okay, ma'am. Actually, in spherical aberration, the rays are which are passing through the lens, it won't be converged at the single point. To minimize that effect, we're going to use the two lens which is distinct each other, but how much they're going to be far away or maybe going to be concrete in design, or we didn't discuss that one. That's I'm going to explain in code
Okay.
5. Then how the diameter of the each length is going to be varied and how much size need to be defined. And the technical parameters of each design I didn't explain in here. While going through the code 5, I'm going
Okay. Thank you.
to explain everything.
Okay, thank you.
It's
Okay.
like a module only.
Next, Srinivasan.
Yes, ma'am.
Srinivasan is asking how to deal with the fringes when we use lens array. Medaru? Srinivas.
I don't have any idea about the lens array, sir. That's why I started the session that to work on the lens
Okay.
array. Right now, I understood the comment with the sequential array oriented only. I understood. In 3-dimensional, having the array oriented, I didn't started reading.
Okay. So Srinivasan is asking what what I feel I understand is when we are using a lens array, so we are using small lens to make up a big lens. And when you take an image with these multiple lens, you are obviously gonna see each lens is gonna take some put some points on the image, and your overall image is gonna have somewhat kind of a distorted effect, right? Because a single lens means it's going to be very clean, but when you have small lens, some kind of a dotted pattern can come in the output image. So how do we solve that? So yes, that is a good question. That is one of the disadvantage of using micro lens array. So the lens array, why we use lens array in comparison to normal lens is it gives us the 3D information. So the normal lens gives us only 2D information, that is the XY position and a pixel value. But in the case of your micro lens array, you get that XY position with the pixel value, and also you get an additional depth map. So that depth information tells us a little bit about the depth is the 3D information, the 3D plane. The Z-axis is also covered in micro lens array. So it is for this 3D information that we prefer this micro lens array. But the drawback is what he pointed, that is the fringes. So we are going to have a develop an algorithm to come up with a trade-off, which will give us a little bit of 3D information and not too much fringe effect. Good. So the fringes is there and it has to be overcome. And how it is not very exhaustively dealt in the research. So it is a problem statement that is open to us. It's actually a good question. It is called as the fringe effect in MLA. MLA is your micro lens array. So they have something called as the fringe effect. And that is something kind of a ripples in the image caused by use of multiple lens. And how to overcome that fully is something we have to look into as a problem statement. Nice question. Okay, next, Anusia.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I just want to know what is the aperture resolution?
Can you come again, Anusia?
Aperture. What is the aperture?
What is aperture? That I think Srinivasulu will answer. Srinivasulu, please.
Aperture is nothing but it's a blocking surface. That means it is going to be enters the only required portion of the light only. The main problem of the light when it is passed on the edges of the lens, then the aberration is going to be formed. To remove that effect, then we're going to put some blocking surface. That means in this portion of diameter only, that light is going to be passed through it. That's known as aperture. Aperture, you can name it in different terms like slit, and some different times they're going to call it as pupil.
Okay, very good. So Anusi, I'll tell another example. It's a very like I don't know if you can correlate this and that. So just imagine the bow and arrow. Okay, so the bow and arrow is like you stretch the bow so that it goes that distance, right? The arrow is stretched in the bow, and then the shape of the bow is like your lens. So our lens is also designed so that the light reaches that destination in a proper manner. Okay, so when the light enters the camera, we want the light to get to a particular position, and it has to get to that position in a certain way to be, that is the focus, to be in focus or to be very clear. And what we do with the aperture is like you said, is just a slit, but I'm talking about even the lens is also. So it just helps the light navigate to the right destination, and so that we get the desired effect.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay, so the bow and arrow example, if you can think, that is one of an analogy I have read in one of the optics book. So they say that when you pull the bow, your bow represents the lens, and the pulling represents your aperture. And then when you leave it, it makes sure that the arrow goes to the destination or where it is intended at the proper velocity, proper force, and it lands there or at the right point. So that is the best example for aperture and lens system.
Okay.
Okay, good. Then, Professor Laya, are you listening?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Any questions?
Can you tell applications like what like you have mentioned the problem statement, right? So, have you thought about the applications like where you are going to use it?
Yes, good question. So my idea is to use the PhD students to develop an micro lens array camera. So there is right now there is no cameras which is having this MLA. So when we have the MLA, you're going to get 3D. So it rather than a commercial aspect, it can be useful as a medical aspect. So the 3D information can be used for glucose monitoring. So I have seen papers where you take the skin, if you get the 3D map from the skin, that tells us a little bit about our blood glucose level on a real-time basis.
Okay.
So examples are, these are some of the very what do you call, very upcoming research. So I've nothing concrete so far, but I feel like if we can do something on micro lens array, and if designing the micro lens array, that would be the first step. Then after the design, we have to prototype it. And then if the prototype is ready, then we send it to some Taiwanese company to fabricate the lens. And then once the lens is fabricated and it reaches us, we just place it in a camera, and then we test that camera. So if we can do all this over a period of 3 to 4 years, then that should be very good.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, good. Moses, are you listening? I think your microphone is not audible, Moses. Then Vijay Kumar. Vijay?
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any doubt?
I'm listening. Yeah. Thanks, Srinivasulu, for giving the fundamental optics. And my question is, what means can we form image by using single optical element?
Yes, we can form the image by single using optical element, but the desired diameter you won't get it.
Then we will not get any aberrations.
Yes, we can see the aberrations. In fundamentally explanation that in concave and convex lens, we had seen that how the image is going to be formed. But that is like a there we consider that defined dimensions. That means object is at certain distance having the height is equal to the in lens height. That much of height we can't fabricate. In practically, the lens will be size of only millimeter only. That's why you're going to see the combination of lenses. I think your doubt is clear.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, all right, good. So that was nice, Srinivasulu. So the next month also we'll have a webinar towards the probably Jan 3rd or 4th week. We have not decided on the topic, but roughly we are looking at code 5 related or expert talk from Synopsys. So either of these will be there, and I want all of you to please join, be a regular participant in these webinar series. For my students, it is not an option; it is definitely compulsory. But for those who are from other backgrounds and other who are not working with me also are welcome to attend this, and I'm very thankful for all the students and others who have attended this. Okay, so I think we can sign off now. Thank you, Srinivasulu. It was a good job.
Thank
Keep
you,
up the
sir.
good work, and hopefully we'll see more of your presentations in the future.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Okay, you can close the recording, and you can finish it off. Thank you.
Standing up.